Tom, where does that come from? Being very opinionated, because that is one thing that I have noticed about your content, and you have alluded to it, is that you make very bold statements. And we've seen, I think a lot of people who are listening or watching this show, we have seen how that the system or these platforms are kind of, they reward that kind of polarizing, bold statements of opinion. But I found it so fascinating that, the first article that you wrote for HuffPost, and you mentioned this earlier, it was about introversion. And you mentioned how you are generally like a shy guy. And most people think, come on, that's BS, man. This guy out here talking about Pinoy baiting and like calling other YouTubers out and whatnot. How is he a shy guy? But I can understand it, because I would consider myself too. I lean towards that side of introversion, and people might think, oh, he hosts this podcast, he's probably like, super outgoing. Like, no, I like to keep to myself at times. But where does that come from? Like, and I did another thing fascinating too, is I remember you mentioning earlier one of your favorite shows growing up, First Take, with Skip Bayless and Stephen A. I'm wondering if a lot of that, watching that show, like influenced you in terms of this path of being very open about your opinions.
Yeah, it's such a great thing to talk about too. That I might want to talk. I might want to write about this later on. I think First Take for sure is super fun to watch. Because you have two people disagreeing with each other vehemently sometimes, trying to get the edge. And watching that show is so fascinating because a lot of times I agree with both of them. It's like, how can I agree with both of you guys? Like, you guys both made amazing arguments. Like, there's this common expression, like, what would you choose? If someone had a gun to your head, what would you choose? Okay, well, it's hard for me, even still with First Take, So I think that I don't know. I think when I am talking to people, I tend to be very agreeable. I don't want to have any problems. I want it to be really chill and relaxed. I keep my opinions to myself. I just want to have a pretty good time, And I generally like people, But I always saw writing and video creation as, okay, it's my turn, Like, I like to listen to other people when I'm with them. I don't like to talk about my opinions with people when when I'm just hanging out with everyone. I don't want to cause rifts. If you agree with me, then I'll talk about my opinion. But if you disagree with me, that's when I listen. And I like listening, because then I can understand where you're coming from. And then I can write about that later on if I ever have a problem. I don't need to engage someone in verbal or logical, let's say logical combat. I don't need to do that. I can do it in my writing, because chances are that when I am given a 2-hour or 3-hour period to properly write out all of my thoughts and make sure that everything is perfect to the T, and I agree with everything I just said, then that is where I find my joy. And I think it gets back to journaling a little bit too, John. Too, like, that's when I started to write down my opinions and my ideas, and I got all of it out before I sort of unleashed it like the plague on my friends or something. And I got mad at my friends for no reason. It's just because I had a bad day. I wrote it down in my journal, and I told my journal about it. And my journal was like my punching bag. And so the opinionation, I guess, it's hard to tell. My family's pretty opinionated as well. My dad's very opinionated. At dinner table, we're talking about politics and stuff, and like a lot of times you can't disagree with your parents, right? And or else they might get upset with you. So my parents are great though. But I sort of kept all my ideas to myself, and I'm sort of bursting at the seams with them sometimes, And I think that I have this need for validation as well, for self-validation. And I think that I should try to find that somewhere else. But when I release an idea out to the world, I don't know. I'm also a big proponent of honesty. Being completely 100% transparent and honest. And so I try to just be as real as possible when I discuss my ideas, you know. But it's weird because when I talk to people, I don't reveal my cards, you know. I'm not always like super transparent with them, but it's not because I'm not lying. I'm just listening to them, you know. So there's so many different things, weird things with my personality. But if I had to point somewhere, I would say definitely my family. You know, that's how we are, I guess, you know.
Well, I think there's a lot at stake too when you are expressing your opinions in like a one-on-one conversation that we're having, right? Because as human beings, we will regress to the lowest common denominator, I think. And especially if somebody says something that irks you or upsets you, that you don't agree with, you'll get emotional. And then next thing you know, you're yelling at each other and then you're not listening anymore. And so it's a problem that I think that we have in our country here in the United States, but worldwide as well, where, you know, a lot of people, you hear about it, like the echo chambers, right? Of just wanting to only listen to what they want to hear. And it's really, and I had a feeling that you would feel this way too, because you have traveled quite a bit. And I know that from my own experiences of traveling, that opens you up to seeing the world from a very different perspective, that the way that you do things in your home country can be totally different in another country, and both kind of lead to the same end result, right?
Yeah. You know, when I grew up in, you know, Bel Air, Maryland here on the East Coast, I grew up here my whole life and everyone sort of thinks the same way. And then you start to think, okay, well, everybody thinks this way, you know? And as you travel more, you meet so many different people, and you see that like the places where, you know, like the media that you might have been listening to, they say that like, you know, these places are like hellholes or something, and you go there and you're like, oh, this is actually like a really cool place filled with like really cool people, and like, yeah, their ideas might seem a little weird at first, but they actually have a point about a lot of things, and then you start to see everything differently. You start to like question, you know, the ideas that you grew up with. You start to question whether you start to question everything, you know. And I think that being exposed to those ideas also helped, weirdly enough, fill my head with ideas and make me a little bit more opinionated about things. And you know, you're right. I mean, we can get so lost in what we believe that we forget the main purpose we're debating in the first place, and that is to talk about our ideas and hopefully get the other person to see our idea, or at least understand it and plant that seed so that they can then make a decision days, weeks, months, years later that, you know, maybe you were right, you know. And that's what tends to happen with my brother. Me and my brother, sometimes we have arguments and conversations and stuff, and I tell him something that hurts, and then days later he's like, yeah, Tom, I think you're right about that. It's like, okay, I just needed to plant the seed, you know. And so yeah, you always got to be careful of that, cognizant of that, I guess, when you're talking and debating with people and seeing all these ideas. Traveling is just, I don't know, there's this one quote, right? Like, traveling is lethal to ignorance or something. It's something along those lines. You know, I forget who said that. I think it's Mark Twain. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And nothing could be more true, in my opinion.
Hey there, thank you so much for watching this excerpt of the Videocraft show presented by Video Husky. If you're a content creator that struggles to organize scripture ideas for your videos, I've got a resource for you. You can get a copy of our free script template. Using it can help you structure your videos and save you hours of time from filming in the process. To get it, all you have to do is just scroll down on this video, find the link in the description, and subscribe to our email list. From there, it'll get delivered straight to your inbox right after you sign up. And by the way, if you're enjoying these videos, can you do us just a quick favor and hit the like button before you go? And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel too, to stay up to date with all the content that we're creating here on this channel. And finally, be sure to tune into the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. We've got links in the description down below. If you want to watch or listen to the full episode, just tap the video right next to me over here, and that'll take you to the entire episode in which this excerpt is from. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.